The front door clicked shut, and the sound echoed through the house like the final note of a song I didn't know was ending. I stood in the foyer, my hand resting on the banister of the staircase my great-grandfather built in 1887, and I watched through the sidelight window as my son's silver SUV backed down the driveway. Tiffany was already on her phone in the passenger seat, her lips moving rapidly, probably telling someone about the cruise. 10 days in the Caribbean, crystal blue waters and unlimited cocktails and freedom from the burden of me. David honked twice, our old signal, the one he'd used since he was 16 and borrowing the car. Love you, Mom. See you soon. I raised my hand to wave, but the car had already turned the corner onto Abercorn Street, and my hand just hung there in the air like something forgotten. The grandfather clock in the parlor ticked. Once, twice. The sound was louder now that the house was empty. No, not empty. I turned around slowly, my knees protesting the way they always did in the summer humidity, and there he was, Leo. 8 years old, small for his age, standing in the doorway to the living room with his Spider-Man backpack still strapped to his shoulders. Tiffany had been running late, something about her nails not drying fast enough, and she'd barked at David to just leave Leo's things. They'd sort it out when they got back. 10 days. I had my grandson for 10 days, and he hadn't spoken a single word to me in 3 years. I tried to smile. Well, sweetheart, it's just us now. He stared at me. Those eyes, David's eyes, my mother's eyes, watching me with an intensity that made my chest tighten. The doctors called it selective mutism. Tiffany had explained it at Thanksgiving 2 years ago, her voice dripping with that false sympathy she wore like perfume. It's Clara's presence, unfortunately. Something about her energy is just too much for Leo. The specialist says we shouldn't force it. I'd cried that night, sat in this very foyer after everyone left and cried until my ribs ached. Now I just smiled and pretended it didn't break my heart. Are you hungry? I could make... Grandma. The word hit me like a physical force. I gripped the banister. My hearing wasn't what it used to be. I must have imagined. Grandma, listen to me. Leo's voice was small but clear, not uncertain, not confused. He stepped closer, his sneakers squeaking on the hardwood floor, and the sound was so ordinary, so real, that I felt tears spring to my eyes. Leo, you're talking to me. I don't have much time. He glanced toward the window, as if checking that the car was truly gone. Mom might call. She checks on me with the camera. The camera? My mind was spinning. 3 years of silence, and now full sentences. In the living room, the nanny cam. She watches you too, Grandma. He grabbed my hand. His fingers were so small, so cold despite the June heat, and pulled me toward the kitchen. Come on. Away from the camera. I let him lead me. What else could I do? My grandson was speaking to me, and the world had tilted on its axis. The kitchen was warm, filled with the late afternoon light that turned everything golden. I could smell the magnolias blooming outside the window, and beneath that something else, something herbal and faintly bitter. The tea. Grandma. Leo stood by the counter, his eyes darting to the ceramic jar shaped like a fat little hen, the one Tiffany had given me last Christmas. Special herbal tea, Clara, for your nerves. You really should drink it every night. What about the tea, sweetheart? Don't drink it. His voice cracked. Please, Grandma, promise me you won't drink it. I moved toward the jar slowly, my hand trembling. Leo, honey, you're scaring me. What? Mom put sleeping medicine in it. The words tumbled out of him now, a dam breaking after years of pressure. I saw her, lots of times. She takes the pills from her bathroom, the ones in the orange bottle, and she crushes them up with a spoon. Then she stirs them into the tea leaves. The room swayed. I reached for the counter to steady myself. That's not possible. Your mother wouldn't. She does. Tears were streaming down his face now. I'm not lying, Grandma. I watched her do it last week, and the week before. She thinks I don't understand, but I do. I understand everything. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out with numb fingers. Tiffany, just making sure Leo is settled. Remember, his bedtime is 8 p.m. sharp. And don't forget your tea, Clara. Doctor's orders. I stared at the message. The smiley face seemed to mock me. Grandma? Leo's voice was smaller now, frightened. Do you believe me? I set the phone down. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the lid of the tea jar, but I managed to pry it open. The smell hit me immediately. Chamomile and lavender, yes, but underneath that, something else. Something chemical and faintly bitter that I'd tasted every night for months and dismissed as just part of the blend. How had I not noticed? Because you were already drugged, a voice whispered in my mind. Because she made sure you were too foggy to question anything. Leo. I knelt down slowly, ignoring the pain in my knees until I was at eye level with him. I need you to tell me everything. Everything you've seen and heard. Can you do that? He nodded, wiping his nose with the back of his hand. But first, I glanced toward the doorway, toward the living room where apparently a camera had been watching my every move. First, tell me what else your mother has planned. Leo's face crumpled. He looked so small, so terrified, and I wanted to wrap him in my arms and promise that everything would be okay. But I couldn't promise that. Not yet. Not until I understood what I was dealing with. She practices, he whispered. Practices what? What she's going to tell the police. He swallowed hard. After your accident. The word hung in the air between us. Accident. What accident, Leo? His eyes went to the doorway, to the grand staircase beyond, the one with the steep steps and the hard marble floor at the bottom. The one that's supposed to happen, he said quietly, while they're away. I woke up on the second morning, and the world was sharp. That's the only way I can describe it. For months, maybe longer, I couldn't be sure, I had been living inside a gauze curtain, everything soft at the edges. Sounds muffled, thoughts slipping away like water through my fingers. I'd assumed it was age, grief maybe for George, even though he'd been gone for 6 years now. Tiffany had nodded sympathetically when I mentioned it. It's perfectly normal, Clara. Cognitive decline, nothing to be ashamed of. But this morning, the gauze was gone. I lay in my bed, the same bed I'd shared with George for 42 years, the same bed where I'd held David as a newborn, and I stared at the ceiling medallion above me. The plasterwork was intricate, hand-carved by craftsmen who'd been dead for over a century, and I could see every detail, every flourish and curve. Yesterday, I wouldn't have been able to focus on it. Yesterday, I would have drifted back to sleep without even trying. Today, my mind was a blade. I sat up slowly, testing my body. My joints ached. That was normal. That was just being 68 years old. But the fog was gone. The terrible, suffocating fog that had made me doubt my own name some nights. 2 days without the tea. That's all it had taken. 2 days of pouring that poison down the drain when no one was watching, of making excuses to Leo about why I was drinking water instead. 2 days, and I was myself again. The fury came then, hot and sudden, flooding my chest like something alive. I gripped the edge of the mattress and breathed through it. I couldn't afford to be angry. Not yet. Anger made you stupid, and I needed to be smart. I needed to be smarter than Tiffany had ever imagined I could be. The house was quiet as I made my way downstairs. The stairs creaked under my weight. The 3rd step, the 7th, the 12th. And I found comfort in the familiar sounds. This house knew me. This house had held 4 generations of my family, had witnessed births and deaths and everything in between. Tiffany wanted it. She'd wanted it from the moment David first brought her home, her eyes roaming the crown moldings and the original hardwood floors with barely concealed hunger. Over my dead body, I'd thought back then. Now I understood. That had been precisely her plan. Leo was asleep on the living room couch, curled up under the Afghan my mother had crocheted in 1962. He'd refused to go to his room last night. The guest room, really. The one Tiffany had decorated in cold grays and whites that looked nothing like a child's space. "I want to stay with you, Grandma," he'd said. "In case something happens." In case something happens. 8 years old, and he was standing guard. I watched him sleep for a long moment. His chest rose and fell steadily. His lips were slightly parted, and in sleep, his face had lost that terrible vigilance. He looked peaceful. He looked like the grandson I remembered from before, the toddler who used to reach for me with chubby arms, who called me Gamma before he could pronounce the R. What had Tiffany done to this child? I turned away, blinking back tears, and went to the kitchen to make coffee. Real coffee, strong and black, not that herbal poison masquerading as wellness. As I waited for the pot to brew, a memory surfaced, unbidden, unwelcome. 3 weeks ago, the dinner party. David and Tiffany had insisted on hosting. Some colleagues of David's from the firm, their wives, Brenda, who'd driven up from Jacksonville with that tight smile she always wore. They'd gathered in my dining room, around the table my grandmother had shipped from England, and Tiffany had played hostess like she owned the place. I remembered sitting at the head of the table, where I'd always sat, and feeling somehow like an intruder. "Clara, you already told that story." Tiffany's voice, light and musical, cutting through my anecdote about David's childhood. Twice, actually. Just tonight. I'd faltered. Had I? I couldn't remember. The fog had been so thick that night. "It's okay." Brenda, reaching over to pat my hand. "Repetition is common at your age. Nothing to worry about." The table had gone quiet. David wouldn't meet my eyes. And Tiffany had risen gracefully, disappeared into the kitchen, and returned with a cup of tea. "Here, Clara, drink up. You've been so confused lately, haven't you? The tea will help you relax." She'd stirred it for me. I remembered that now, the way she'd held the spoon, swirling it slowly, her eyes never leaving my face. She was smiling, that perfect, pleasant smile that never reached her eyes, and I had drunk it. Every drop, because I was confused, because I was foggy, because I'd started to believe that maybe something really was wrong with me. I hadn't known she was the one making me that way. The coffee pot beeped. I poured myself a cup with hands that trembled, not from the drugs this time, but from rage. She had stolen months from me. She had made me doubt my own mind. She had humiliated me in front of my son, in front of strangers, in my own home. And all the while, she'd been counting pills and crushing them into powder and stirring them into my tea with that serene, helpful smile. "You've been so confused lately, Clara." I set down the coffee cup. My hands were shaking too badly to hold it. "Grandma?" I turned. Leo stood in the doorway, the Afghan wrapped around his thin shoulders like a cape. His eyes were worried, scanning my face for signs of trouble. "I'm all right, sweetheart," I managed to smile. "Just thinking." "About Mom?" I hesitated. He was 8. He shouldn't have to carry this. But he'd been carrying it for years already, hadn't he? Alone. Silenced. "Yes," I said finally. "About your mom." He padded into the kitchen, his bare feet slapping against the tile, and climbed onto one of the counter stools. "She practices a lot," he said quietly. "At night, when Dad's on trips. She stands in front of the mirror and talks." "What does she say?" Leo's face scrunched up as he remembered. His voice shifted, taking on a higher pitch, a mimicry of his mother's cadence that made my blood run cold. "Officer, I don't know what happened. We left her with my son. We thought she'd be fine, but she's been so confused lately, wandering at night. I begged my husband to get her help, but he couldn't accept that his mother was declining. And now..." Leo dropped the imitation, his real voice returning, small and scared. "Then she pretends to cry. She practices crying, Grandma." I closed my eyes. The kitchen seemed to spin, even though I was perfectly sober, perfectly clear. "Why didn't you tell anyone, sweetheart? Your father, She said she'd send me away. The words came out in a rush. To a special school, far away. She said if I ever talked to you, if I ever told anyone, she'd tell Dad I was sick like you, and they'd send me somewhere I'd never come back from. 8 years old, my grandson had been carrying this for 3 years, since he was 5, holding his silence like a shield against a mother who'd threatened to erase him. I crossed the kitchen and gathered him into my arms. He was so small, so fragile, shaking against my chest like a leaf in a storm. Listen to me, Leo. I pulled back so I could look into his eyes. No one is sending you anywhere. You are staying right here, with me, in this house, and your mother is never going to hurt either of us again. Promise? I promise. I meant it. With every fiber of my being, I meant it. But promises were easy. Action was harder. I settled Leo with a bowl of cereal and the TV tuned to cartoons, something bright and loud and normal, and I stepped onto the back porch with my phone. The morning was already warm, the humidity thick, the cicadas beginning their daily chorus in the magnolia trees. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I needed. Ruth Delgado. She answered on the second ring. Clara? It's barely 7 in the morning. You okay? No, I said quietly. I'm not. Ruth, I need your help, and I need you to listen to everything before you say a word. Silence on the line. Then, I'm listening, I told her. All of it. The tea, the pills, the fog that had lifted, Leo's silence and the terrible reason behind it. Tiffany's rehearsals in the mirror, the planned accident, the nanny cam watching my every move. When I finished, Ruth was quiet for a long moment. I could hear her breathing, slow and steady, the way she used to breathe before making an arrest back when she was on the force. Clara, she said finally, her voice hard as iron. If what you're telling me is true, and I believe you, honey, I do, this isn't just cruelty. She paused. This is attempted murder. Ruth Delgado arrived at my door 47 minutes after I hung up the phone. I watched her park her old Buick on the street. She refused to pull into driveways, a habit from her patrol days, always wanting a clear exit, and walk up the front path with the same steady, purposeful stride I'd known for 40 years. She was 70 now, her hair gone silver, her face weathered by time and sun and decades of seeing humanity at its worst. But her eyes were sharp as ever, sharp and angry. Where is he? She asked as soon as I opened the door. The boy. Living room, watching cartoons. I didn't want him to hear. Good. She stepped inside, her gaze sweeping the foyer like she was securing a crime scene. Old instincts never die. And the camera? In there too. Leo says it's hidden somewhere on the bookshelf. Ruth nodded slowly. Then we talk outside. Show me the tea first. I led her to the kitchen. The ceramic hen sat on the counter where I'd left it, its cheerful painted smile suddenly sinister. Ruth pulled a pair of latex gloves from her purse. Of course she still carried latex gloves, and lifted the lid carefully. Don't touch it, she murmured. If there are prints... I've already touched it. Multiple times. I didn't know. That's fine. Hers will be on there too. She leaned in, sniffed, her nose wrinkled. You smell that? Under the chamomile? Bitter, chemical. Benzodiazepines probably. Crushed pills dissolve, but they leave a residue, a taste. She replaced the lid and turned to look at me, her eyes softening. How long, Clara? How long has she been doing this? I don't know. My voice cracked. Months, maybe longer. I can't remember clearly. That's the problem. I can't trust my own memories. Ruth placed a hand on my shoulder. Her grip was firm, grounding. You're clear now. That's what matters. You stopped drinking it, and you're clear. My phone buzzed on the counter. We both looked at it. Tiffany. Beautiful day at sea. Hope you and Leo are having fun. Don't forget, tea before bed. It really does help with your sleep issues. Miss you. Attached was a photo. Tiffany and David on the deck of the cruise ship, the Caribbean sparkling blue behind them. Tiffany wore a white sundress and an enormous sun hat. She was smiling, her arm looped through David's, looking like a woman without a care in the world. A woman who believed at this very moment that I was slowly being poisoned into oblivion. She's checking, Ruth said quietly, making sure you're following the script. Should I respond? Yes. Keep it short. Play confused. I picked up the phone with trembling hands and typed, "Having a nice time." Leo is quiet. Tea helped me sleep, getting forgetful again today. The response came almost immediately. "Oh no, make sure you're drinking it every night, okay? We'll get you sorted when we're back. Rest up." I set the phone down. The smiley faces and hearts made my stomach turn. Ruth guided me out to the back porch, closing the door firmly behind us. The morning had grown hotter, the air thick with the scent of magnolias and fresh-cut grass from the neighbor's yard. We sat in the old wicker chairs George had bought the summer before he died, and Ruth leaned forward, her elbows on her knees. "Tell me about this camera." "Leo says Tiffany installed it about 6 months ago to monitor my episodes," she told David. "Make sure I wasn't wandering or hurting myself." "Where is it?" "The bookshelf in the living room. He says it's in an owl, a decorative owl." Ruth's jaw tightened. "Cloud-connected, I assume." "I don't know how these things work, Ruth." "They record to a server. The owner can watch live or review footage from an app on their phone." She was quiet for a moment, thinking. "But here's the thing, Clara. If she can access that footage, so can you. These systems have account logins, passwords, and if she set it up on your Wi-Fi network." "She might have used something I could guess." Ruth smiled grimly. "People get lazy. They use birthdays, anniversaries, the name of their dog. And Tiffany doesn't strike me as a particularly careful woman, just a cruel one." We went back inside. Leo was still watching cartoons, his eyes fixed on the screen, but I noticed how he tensed when we entered the room, always watching, always listening. "Sweetheart," I said softly, "can you show Miss Ruth where the camera is?" He looked at Ruth, assessing her the way children assess strangers. Then he nodded slowly and pointed to the bookshelf. "The owl. The brown one with the big eyes. Mom put it there when Dad was on a trip." Ruth crossed to the shelf. The owl was about 8 inches tall, ceramic, painted in browns and golds. It sat between a collection of Faulkner first editions and a framed photo of David's high school graduation. Ruth examined it without touching it. "There." She pointed to the owl's eyes, 2 dark glass circles. "That's the lens. Good quality, too. This isn't cheap." "Can you turn it off?" "Not yet. If we turn it off, she'll know something's wrong. She's probably checking the feed from the ship." Ruth turned to me. "Do you have a computer? A laptop?" "In the study." 20 minutes later, we were hunched over George's old desk, my laptop open in front of us. Ruth had found the camera's brand by examining the base of the owl, Nestwatch Pro, and we'd pulled up the login page on the browser. "Try her email," Ruth suggested. I typed in Tiffany's personal email address, the one she used for everything, the one she'd given me years ago in case of emergencies. The password field blinked at me. "Birthday?" I tried Tiffany's birthday. Incorrect. Leo's birthday? Incorrect. Anniversary? I hesitated. When had David and Tiffany gotten married? June 15th. I typed it in. 06157. "Welcome, Tiffany." Ruth let out a breath. "Lazy, just like I said." The dashboard opened before us. I saw the live feed first, the living room, slightly fish-eyed, Leo's small form still visible on the couch. Then Ruth clicked on the archive tab and a list of recordings appeared. Dozens of them, hundreds, dating back 6 months. "My God," I whispered, "she's been watching me this whole time." Watching and saving. Ruth scrolled through the dates. "Look, she's flagged some of these, starred them. Probably the ones she thinks are useful." She clicked on a starred recording from 3 weeks ago. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m. The video loaded. The living room appeared, dark except for a single lamp, and there was Tiffany, standing in front of the fireplace, her back to the camera at first. She was wearing pajamas, silk, pale pink. Her hair was down. Then she turned, and I saw that she was talking. Not to anyone. The room was empty. She was talking to herself. "Officer, I don't understand what happened." Her voice came through the laptop speakers, tinny but clear. "We left her with our son. She's been struggling, you know. Cognitive decline. We've been trying to get her help, but my husband, he just couldn't accept it." She paused, pressed a hand to her chest, practicing grief. She must have gotten confused in the night, tried to go downstairs maybe. The stairs in this old house, they're so steep. We always worried. We always said someone would get hurt. She turned away, turned back, reset. "Officer, I don't know what to tell you. Clara was like a mother to me. I loved her so much. I wish we'd done more." And then, the crying, just like Leo had described. Tiffany covered her face with her hands, and her shoulders shook, and the sounds coming from her throat were perfectly pitched sobs. Heartbroken, devastated. Then she stopped, dropped her hands. Her face was dry, her eyes clear. She smiled at her own reflection in the darkened window. The video ended. I realized I was gripping the edge of the desk so hard my knuckles had gone white. My heart was pounding, my breath coming in shallow gasps. "She practiced this," I said. My voice didn't sound like my own. "She practiced burying me." Ruth closed the laptop gently. "We have her, Clara. Whatever she thought she was doing with this camera, documenting your decline, building a case for the facility, she made a mistake. She recorded herself." The phone on the desk rang, making us both jump. I checked the caller ID. Brenda Holloway. "Tiffany's mother," I said. Ruth's eyes narrowed. "Answer it. Put it on speaker. And remember, you're still foggy. You're still confused." I took a breath and pressed the green button. "Hello? Clara? Sweetheart?" Brenda's voice was syrup and honey, thick with false warmth. "How are you feeling today? Tiffany asked me to check in on you while they're away." "Oh, Brenda." I let my voice waver, let it drift. "That's so kind. I'm a little tired today, having trouble remembering things." "Oh, no, honey. Are you drinking your tea? Tiffany said the tea really helps." "Yes, every night. It makes me so sleepy, though. I can barely keep track of the days." A pause. When Brenda spoke again, there was satisfaction beneath the concern. "Well, that's to be expected, Clara, at your age. You just rest, okay? Don't try to do too much, and keep Leo occupied. You know how children are. So much energy." "I will, Brenda. Thank you for calling." "Of course, sweetheart. Take care of yourself." The line went dead. Ruth looked at me, her face grim. "She knows," I said. It wasn't a question. "She knows." Ruth stood, pacing the small study. "She's checking up on you, making sure the plan is on track. This isn't just Tiffany, Clara. This is a conspiracy. The mother's involved, maybe others. Dr. Webb, Tiffany's cousin. He wrote some kind of evaluation. We'll deal with him later. Right now, we focus on what we can prove." She picked up the tea jar from where she'd set it on a side table. "I'm taking this to a private lab. A friend of mine runs one in Atlanta. Owes me a few favors. We'll have results in 72 hours. And the footage? Download everything. Every starred video, every recording from the past 6 months. Save it to a flash drive and then save it again to a second one. We're building a case, Clara." She turned to face me, and in her eyes I saw the cop she'd been for 35 years, fierce, relentless, righteous. "We're going to nail her. All of them." The days that followed were the happiest I'd known in years. I know that sounds strange, given everything. Given that my daughter-in-law was on a cruise ship somewhere in the Caribbean, believing I was slowly losing my mind to a drug she'd stirred into my tea. Given that my own son had been so thoroughly manipulated that he'd signed papers to have me evaluated. given that somewhere in Jacksonville, Brenda Holloway was probably counting the days until she could help auction off my furniture. But none of that mattered when Leo laughed, and Leo laughed a lot that week. Once the dam broke, once the silence lifted, he became a different child entirely. The quiet, watchful boy who had haunted the edges of family gatherings for 3 years was gone. In his place was a curious, chatty, wonderfully normal 8-year-old who had questions about everything and opinions about even more. "Grandma, why do the stairs creak?" "Because the house is old, sweetheart. Old things make noise." "How old?" "Older than me. Older than my grandmother. This house was built in 1887. That's like 100 years ago." "More than that." Whoa. He followed me everywhere. Into the garden, where I taught him the names of the roses George had planted the year David was born. Into the attic, where we found boxes of old photographs and Leo squealed with delight at pictures of his father as a baby. Into the kitchen, where, on the 4th day, I decided it was time to teach him something important. "We're going to make a pie," I announced. Leo looked skeptical. "I don't know how to cook. That's why I'm going to teach you. This is your great-great-grandmother's apple pie recipe. She brought it over from Ireland in 1902, and every woman in this family has made it since." "But I'm not a woman." "No, but you're a Bennett, and Bennetts bake." He grinned. It was the widest smile I'd seen from him yet. We spent the afternoon covered in flour. I showed him how to cut butter into the dough, how to peel apples in one long spiral, how to sprinkle cinnamon with a light hand. The kitchen filled with the smell of sugar and fruit and something else, something I hadn't felt in this house for years. Joy. Leo chattered the entire time. About school. He liked math, hated reading logs. About his best friend Marcus, who had moved away last year, and Leo still missed him. About the video games his father let him play when Tiffany wasn't home, and the books he read under his covers with a flashlight. "Mom doesn't like me reading," he said, carefully arranging apple slices in the pie dish. "She says it makes me weird." I bit back the response I wanted to give. "Reading doesn't make you weird, sweetheart. Reading makes you interesting." "That's what Dad says too, but only when Mom's not around." I watched him work, his small hands precise and careful, and I felt a crack spread through my heart. This child had been living in a house divided, navigating his parents' contradictions like a soldier navigating a minefield. No wonder he'd stopped speaking. Silence was safer. The pie came out golden and perfect. We ate it warm with vanilla ice cream, sitting at the kitchen table while the evening light turned everything amber. Leo declared it the best pie he'd ever tasted, and I believed him, not because of my baking, but because of everything else. The freedom, the warmth, the simple, radical act of being allowed to exist without fear. Later, after dinner, we sat on the back porch and watched the fireflies blink in the garden. The air was thick and warm, smelling of jasmine and cut grass. Leo leaned against my shoulder, and I wrapped an arm around him. "Grandma?" "Yes, sweetheart." "Why didn't you visit me? Before, I mean, when I was little." The question was a knife between my ribs. I took a slow breath. "I tried, Leo. I tried so many times, but your mother, she made it difficult. She said you needed space, that my visits upset you." "They didn't upset me." His voice was small. "I liked when you came, but then Mom said I wasn't allowed to talk to you anymore. She said you were sick and I might catch it." "Catch it?" "You're forgetting sickness. She said it was contagious." "Yeah, that." I closed my eyes. The depth of Tiffany's cruelty continued to reveal itself, layer after layer, like an onion made of poison. "Memory problems aren't contagious, sweetheart. Your mother told you that so you would stay away from me." "I know that now." He was quiet for a moment. "Grandma, why does Mommy hate you so much?" There it was, the question I'd been dreading. I considered lying, softening it, protecting him from the truth about his own mother. But Leo had spent 3 years drowning in lies. He deserved honesty, as much as an 8-year-old could handle. "I don't think your mother hates me exactly," I said carefully. "I think she wants something I have. This house, the money your grandfather left, and I'm in her way. Some people, when they want something badly enough, they stop seeing other people as people. They just see obstacles." Leo thought about this. "So she wants to move you out so she can have your stuff?" "Something like that. That's really mean." "Yes, sweetheart, it is." He snuggled closer. "I won't let her. I'll protect you, Grandma." My throat tightened. This child, this small, brave, broken child, had already protected me, had shattered 3 years of terrified silence to warn me about the tea, had risked everything he feared most to save my life. "We'll protect each other," I said. "That's what family does." The phone rang inside the house. I recognized the ringtone, Ruth's number. "Stay here, sweetheart. I need to take this." I stepped inside, closing the porch door behind me, and answered. "Clara." Ruth's voice was grim. "I got the lab results." My hand tightened on the phone. "And?" "Benzodiazepines, specifically lorazepam. High concentration, much higher than a normal dose. Whoever put this in your tea wasn't trying to help you sleep. They were trying to incapacitate you." I leaned against the kitchen counter. My legs felt weak. How bad? Bad enough to cause significant cognitive impairment over time. Memory loss, confusion, difficulty concentrating, all the symptoms you described. And if you'd kept drinking it. Ruth paused. "Clara, at those concentrations, long-term use could have caused serious health complications, respiratory issues, heart problems, falls. Falls." The word hung in the air. "She was setting me up," I said quietly, "drugging me until I was so unsteady, so confused that a fall down the stairs would look completely natural." "That's my assessment, yes." I thought of Tiffany practicing in the living room, her rehearsed tears, her scripted grief. She must have gotten confused in the night, tried to go downstairs. The stairs in this old house, they're so steep. "What do we do now?" "Now we prepare. I've got the lab report in writing. I've got the footage from the nanny cam. When that ship docks, we're going to be ready." Ruth's voice hardened. "How much longer?" I checked the calendar on the wall. 4 days. "Then we have 4 days to build an airtight case. I'm calling my contacts at the Savannah PD tomorrow. And you need to call Harold, your estate lawyer. Make sure your affairs are in order. Update your will if you haven't already." "I will." "And Clara? Keep playing along. Keep texting Tiffany like nothing's wrong. We can't let her suspect anything." "I understand." "Good. Get some rest. You're going to need it." I hung up and stood in the kitchen for a long moment, staring at the empty tea jar on the counter. Ruth had taken the contaminated tea, but the ceramic hen remained, that cheerful, painted smile, those rosy cheeks, a gift from my daughter-in-law, a vessel for poison. I picked it up, carried it to the trash bin, and dropped it in. The ceramic shattered with a satisfying crash. Then I went back to the porch, where Leo was still watching the fireflies, and I sat down beside him. "Everything okay, Grandma?" "Everything is going to be fine, sweetheart." He nodded, trusting me completely, and leaned his head against my shoulder. I stayed there with him until the stars came out, watching him breathe, feeling his small, warm weight against my side. And I made a silent promise, to him, to myself, to the ghost of George, who had loved this house and this family more than anything. I won't let them win. I won't let them take this from us. Not the house, not Leo, not my life. I won't let them. Harold Finch arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, carrying a leather briefcase older than my son, and wearing a seersucker suit that had probably been in style during the Carter administration. He was 82 years old, sharp as a scalpel, and had been handling the Bennett family's legal affairs since before I married George. When I'd called him the day before, His only question had been, "How bad is it?" "Bad," I'd said. "I'll be there tomorrow." Now he sat across from me at the dining room table, his reading glasses perched on his nose, a stack of documents spread between us. Leo was in the kitchen with Ruth, who had arrived an hour earlier with fresh bread and a grim expression. The adults had work to do. "Let me make sure I understand," Harold said, his pen tapping against the legal pad where he'd been taking notes. "Your daughter-in-law has been drugging your tea with benzodiazepines. She's been recording you with a hidden camera, presumably to document your decline. And she's been practicing what she'll tell the police after you have a fatal accident." "That's correct." Harold removed his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. In all the years I'd known him, I'd never seen him look so tired. "I always knew there was something wrong with that woman," he said quietly. "From the first time David brought her to Thanksgiving, she had the eyes of a woman counting silverware. You never said anything. It wasn't my place, and I hoped I was wrong." He replaced his glasses and pulled a fresh document from his briefcase. "I wasn't wrong. Now, let's discuss your estate." We spent the next hour restructuring everything. George had left the house and the bulk of our savings to me, with David as the secondary beneficiary. But wills could be changed, and mine was about to be. "Everything goes into a trust," Harold explained, his pen scratching across the paper. "Leo is the primary beneficiary. The house, the investments, the accounts, all of it held in trust until he turns 25. You'll name a trustee to manage it." "Ruth," I said immediately. "Ruth Delgado." "Good choice. Now, David and Tiffany, nothing." The word came out harder than I intended. "They get nothing." Harold looked at me over his glasses. "Clara, David is your son." David stood by while his wife drugged me. He signed papers to have me committed without my knowledge. He let that woman convince him I was losing my mind, and he never once, not once, thought to question it. My voice cracked. "I love my son, Harold. But love doesn't mean I have to reward his weakness." Harold was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. "There are options. We can include a provision. If David divorces Tiffany and demonstrates genuine remorse, the trust can be amended to include him. A path to redemption, if he chooses to take it." A path to redemption. That was more than Tiffany deserved. But David was still my boy. Still the child I'd rocked to sleep in this very house. The teenager who'd brought me flowers on Mother's Day. The young man who'd wept at his father's funeral. Tiffany had twisted him, manipulated him, isolated him from his own mother. But somewhere inside, the son I'd raised still existed. "Include the provision," I said, "but make the conditions strict." "Understood." We signed the documents. Harold witnessed them, dated them, tucked them into his ancient briefcase. "I'll file these tomorrow morning," he said, standing. "And Clara?" He paused at the door, his hand on the frame. "Give them hell." I smiled. "I intend to." After Harold left, Ruth emerged from the kitchen with a woman I didn't recognize. She was younger, mid-40s maybe, with short gray hair and the kind of steady, assessing gaze that came from years of detective work. She wore plain clothes, but the badge clipped to her belt was unmistakable. "Clara," Ruth said, "this is Detective Arlene Vance. Savannah PD. She's an old friend." "Mrs. Bennett?" Detective Vance shook my hand firmly. "Ruth's told me everything. I've reviewed the lab report and the footage from the nanny cam. And I've seen enough to move forward." She sat down across from me, her expression serious. "What your daughter-in-law has been doing constitutes aggravated assault at minimum. Given the evidence of premeditation, the rehearsed statements, the documented plan, we could potentially pursue attempted murder charges." The words landed like stones. Attempted murder. It was one thing to know it in my gut, to feel the truth of it in my bones. It was another to hear a police detective say it out loud. "What do you need from me?" "Your cooperation, your testimony, and your willingness to let this play out." Detective Vance leaned forward. Here's what I'm proposing. We let Mrs. Tiffany Bennett return from her cruise, believing everything went according to plan. She walks into this house expecting to find you confused, disoriented, maybe injured. Instead, she finds us. A trap. A reckoning. The detective's eyes were hard. We'll have officers positioned outside, out of sight. Ruth will be here with you. When Mrs. Bennett and your son arrive, we let them enter. We let her see that you're perfectly lucid, and then we present the evidence. What about David? Detective Vance exchanged a glance with Ruth. That depends on what he does when confronted with the truth. If he cooperates, provides testimony against his wife, we can discuss leniency. If he tries to protect her. She shook her head. Then he becomes an accessory after the fact. I thought of my son, my foolish, blind, broken son. Would he finally see the truth when it was laid out before him? Or would Tiffany's grip on him prove stronger than evidence, stronger than blood? I didn't know, and that uncertainty was perhaps the most painful part of all. I understand, I said. What do I need to do? Keep playing your role until they arrive. Respond to texts like, "Nothing's changed." Let her think she's winning. Detective Vance stood. And Mrs. Bennett, when the moment comes, stay calm. Don't confront her yourself. Let us handle it. I'll try. She smiled, a thin, knowing smile. Ruth warned me you might say that. That evening, after Ruth and the detective had gone, I sat alone in the kitchen with my phone. Leo was upstairs, finally willing to sleep in the guest room now that he felt safe. The house was quiet, settled into its familiar nighttime creaks and sighs. My phone buzzed. Tiffany. Last night on the ship. Can't wait to get home and check on you and Leo. I've already called Dr. Webb. He's going to come by this week to do a full evaluation. It's time we got you the help you need, Clara. I know it's hard, but it's for the best. See you tomorrow. I stared at the message, the casual cruelty of it, the cheerful emojis masking the malice beneath. She was coming home to finish what she'd started, to have me declared incompetent, to take my house, to erase me from my own family. She had no idea what was waiting for her. I typed my response carefully, channeling the fog, the confusion, the helplessness she expected. Thank you, Tiffany. I have been so confused lately. I think I need help. Leo has been quiet. I keep forgetting things. See you tomorrow. Her response was immediate. Oh, Clara, don't worry. We're going to take care of everything. Rest up tonight. Drink your tea. I set the phone down and stood slowly. The tea. I walked to the cupboard where I kept my regular tea, not the poisoned blend which Ruth had taken for evidence, but plain chamomile, clean, safe. I filled the kettle and set it to boil. When the tea was ready, I carried the pot to the dining room table. I set out cups, 4 of them. I arranged them carefully, placing one at each seat. Then I added the sugar bowl, the creamer, the small silver spoons George's mother had given us as a wedding gift. The table looked perfect, welcoming, like I was expecting guests. I stood back and surveyed my work. Tomorrow, Tiffany would walk through that door expecting to find a broken old woman. Instead, she would find this, a table set for tea, a grandmother with a clear mind and a sharp tongue, and a circle of people who knew exactly what she had done. I turned off the kitchen light and paused in the doorway. Welcome home, Tiffany, I whispered to the darkness. Then I climbed the stairs, slowly, carefully, one hand on the banister, and went to bed. Tomorrow, this would end. The morning of their return, I woke before dawn. I lay in bed and listened to the house breathe, the familiar creaks and settles of a structure that had stood for nearly 140 years. Generations of my family had been born in these rooms, had lived and loved and died within these walls. Tiffany thought she could take it from me. She thought she could drug me into oblivion, stage an accident, and waltz in as the grieving daughter-in-law to claim her inheritance. She was about to learn how wrong she was. I rose slowly, my joints protesting, and went through my morning routine with deliberate care. I bathed. I dressed. Not in the housecoat Tiffany expected, but in the navy blue dress I'd worn to George's retirement party, the one that made me look sharp and serious and fully in command. I styled my hair. I put on the pearl earrings George had given me on our 25th anniversary. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see a confused old woman on the edge of decline. I saw a survivor. By 9 o'clock, Ruth had arrived. She came through the back door, avoiding the nanny cam's view out of habit, and wrapped me in a fierce hug. "How are you feeling?" "Ready," I said. And I meant it. Detective Vance and 2 uniformed officers arrived at 10, parking around the corner and entering through the garden gate. They positioned themselves in the study, out of sight, but within earshot of the living room. The door was left slightly ajar. "Remember," Detective Vance said quietly, her hand on my arm. "Let her incriminate herself if she tries. Stay calm. We'll step in when the moment is right." "And if she runs?" The detective smiled grimly. "She won't get far." Leo was upstairs in my bedroom with strict instructions to stay there until I called for him. He'd been nervous that morning, clinging to my hand, asking again and again if everything would be okay. "It will be," I'd promised him. "After today, you'll never have to be afraid of her again." At 11:47, I heard a car pull into the driveway. I was sitting at the dining room table, the tea service arranged before me, when the front door opened. The sound of Tiffany's voice drifted in before she did, that bright musical tone she used when she wanted to seem warm. "Clara, we're home. How are you feeling, sweetheart?" She appeared in the doorway to the living room, her cruise tan glowing, her hair blown out in perfect waves. She was wearing white linen pants and a silk blouse, looking every inch the devoted daughter-in-law returning from a well-deserved vacation to check on her ailing mother-in-law. Then she saw me. I watched her face as she registered what was before her, me, sitting upright, dressed impeccably, my eyes clear and focused. No confusion, no fog, no trembling hands or wandering gaze. Just me, sharp and waiting. "Clara," her voice faltered just for a moment. "You look, well." "I feel well, Tiffany. Remarkably well, actually. Please, sit down." I made tea. David appeared behind her, lugging 2 suitcases. He looked tired, sunburned, and immediately concerned when he saw the set of my jaw. "Mom, what's going on?" "Sit down, David. Both of you. We need to talk." Tiffany didn't move. Her eyes were darting now to the tea service, to the corners of the room, to the nanny cam owl on the bookshelf. Calculating. I could almost see the gears turning behind those cold blue eyes. "I don't understand," she said carefully. "You seem different. Have you been taking your tea?" I specifically asked. "Oh, I know exactly what you asked, Tiffany." I folded my hands on the table. "I know about the tea. I know about the pills you've been crushing into it for months. Lorazepam, I believe? Dr. Webb's contribution to your little project?" The color drained from her face. David set down the suitcases. "Mom, what are you talking about? Tiffany, what is she?" "She's confused, David." Tiffany's voice had gone hard, defensive. "This is exactly what I warned you about. The paranoia, the accusations. I'm not confused." I reached into the folder beside my teacup and withdrew the lab report. "This is a toxicology analysis of the tea you gave me. The special herbal blend you insisted I drink every night. Benzodiazepines, Tiffany. Enough to cause significant cognitive impairment over time. Enough to make me seem like I was losing my mind." David took the paper. His hands were shaking as he read it. "This can't be right," he whispered. "Tiffany, tell her this isn't... It's a lie." Tiffany's mask was cracking now, her composure slipping. "She's making this up. She probably drugged herself to frame me." "There's more." I pulled out the flash drive. "This contains footage from the nanny cam you installed in my living room, the one you thought you were using to document my episodes." I smiled, and there was no warmth in it. "But cameras record everything, Tiffany, including your rehearsals." The word landed like a slap. Tiffany went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Then let me refresh your memory. I turned toward the study door. Detective Vance? The door swung open, and Arlene Vance stepped into the room, badge visible, her expression professionally neutral. Behind her, 2 uniformed officers followed. Mrs. Tiffany Bennett, Detective Vance said. I'm Detective Arlene Vance with the Savannah Police Department. We have some questions for you regarding the attempted poisoning of Clara Bennett. Attempted poisoning? David's voice cracked. What the hell is happening? Tiffany backed toward the door, but one of the officers had already moved to block it. This is insane, she spat. Clara's a confused old woman. She doesn't know what she's saying. David, tell them. Play the footage, I said quietly. Ruth stepped forward with her laptop. She set it on the dining room table, pressed play, and turned up the volume. Tiffany's voice filled the room. Officer, I don't understand what happened. We left her with our son. She's been struggling, cognitive decline. On the screen, Tiffany stood in my living room at midnight, rehearsing her grief, practicing her tears, smoothing her expression into a mask of devastation, and then letting it drop, satisfied with her performance. David watched in silence. His face had gone gray. The stairs in this old house, they're so steep. We always worried. We always said someone would get hurt. The video ended. The room was silent, except for the ticking of the grandfather clock. David turned to his wife. Tiffany. His voice was barely a whisper. What did you do? David, you have to understand. What did you do? She broke. I did it for us. The words exploded out of her. For our family. Do you have any idea how much this house is worth? How much we could get if we just... She was going to outlive all of us, David. Sitting in this rotting mansion, hoarding money we need while we're drowning in debt. You tried to kill my mother. I tried to help her. Tiffany was screaming now, tears streaming down her face. She was old and confused, and she was never going to get better, and I thought if she had an accident, if she just... Tiffany Bennett. Detective Vance stepped forward, handcuffs ready. You're under arrest for aggravated assault, attempted murder, and elder abuse. You have the right to remain silent. The rest of the words blurred as the officers took her arms. Tiffany struggled, screaming my name, screaming David's name, screaming that this wasn't fair, that I had ruined everything, that she'd make me pay. The door closed behind her, and the screaming faded. David stood in the middle of the living room, staring at the space where his wife had been. He looked like a man who had just watched his entire world collapse, which I suppose he had. Mom. His voice broke. I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know. I looked at my son, my only child. The boy I had raised in this house, had taught to ride a bike in this driveway, had held when he cried over skinned knees and teenage heartbreaks. The man who had stood by while his wife slowly poisoned me. You didn't want to know, David. My voice was steady. Every time I tried to tell you something was wrong, you dismissed me. Every time she mocked me, you said nothing. You signed papers to have me committed without ever asking me if it was what I wanted. I'm sorry. Tears were streaming down his face. Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't see... No, you didn't. I stood slowly and walked toward him. I love you, David. You're my son, and I will always love you. But forgiveness is not something I can give you today. It's something you'll have to earn. He nodded, unable to speak. There's a provision in my new will, I continued, a path back. But it requires you to face what happened here, to testify against her, to go to therapy, to become the man your father raised you to be, not the man she turned you into. I'll do it. He grabbed my hands. Whatever it takes, Mom, I'll do it. Then we'll see. I pulled my hands free and walked to the stairs. Leo? I called. You can come down now, sweetheart. It's safe. The sound of small feet thundered overhead, and then Leo appeared at the top of the stairs. He paused, looking down at his father, then at me. "Is it over, Grandma?" "It's over." He flew down the stairs and into my arms. I held him tight, breathing in the smell of his hair, baby shampoo and summer sweat, and something uniquely, wonderfully Leo. David watched us. The pain in his eyes was raw, unguarded. "Hey, buddy," he said softly. Leo turned. He looked at his father for a long moment. "You let her hurt Grandma," he said. It wasn't an accusation. It was a simple statement of fact. David flinched like he'd been struck. "I know. I'm sorry, Leo. I'm so sorry." Leo didn't respond. He just turned back to me and pressed his face into my shoulder. We had time. We had years, God willing, to rebuild what Tiffany had tried to destroy. It wouldn't be easy. It wouldn't be quick. But the first step was this: standing in this old house, holding each other, finally free. That evening, after Ruth had gone home and David had left for a hotel, he couldn't stay here. Not yet, we both knew that. Leo and I sat on the back porch and watched the sun set over the garden. The sky turned pink, then orange, then a deep, bruised purple. Fireflies began to blink in the magnolia trees. The cicadas sang their endless summer song. Leo hadn't stopped talking for hours. About the cruise his parents had taken, about the pie we'd made, about the books he wanted to read, and the games he wanted to play, and the things he wanted to learn. 3 years of silence, unleashed in a flood of words. I listened to every single one. "Grandma?" He leaned against my shoulder, his voice finally growing sleepy. "Yes, sweetheart." "Can we make pie again tomorrow?" I smiled, feeling the warmth of him against my side, the solid reality of this moment. "Every day, sweetheart, every single day." The house settled around us, old and creaking and full of ghosts. But for the first time in years, it didn't feel like a prison. It felt like home.